The creature hit the arena floor like a falling meteor. Metal alarms screamed across the vast chamber as containment barriers flickered violently. The polished stone of the Imperial arena trembled beneath the beast's weight, and hundreds of diplomats in the surrounding balconies stood up in alarm. The thing was massive, 8 meters long, plated with dark armored scales, its body built like a living war machine. Its eyes glowed faintly with a cold, predatory intelligence as it rose slowly, shaking dust from its hide. Across the arena, Imperial guards froze. Everyone in the galaxy knew what this creature was. A Ravager-class war beast, engineered for planetary assaults, designed to hunt soldiers across hostile terrain. Its senses could track movement through walls, detect heartbeats, even anticipate evasive maneuvers. Normally, creatures like this were kept in deep military facilities, not in a ceremonial arena. The containment field surrounding the creature flickered again. Then it died. For one terrible second, silence swallowed the entire chamber. Then panic erupted. Diplomats scrambled away from the balcony rails. Alien security teams shouted commands into their comm units. Emergency sirens echoed to the Imperial complex as defense systems tried to recover. But the Ravager was already moving. It lifted its head slowly, scanning the arena floor. Its long tail dragged across the stone like a heavy chain. Thousands of eyes watched in frozen disbelief. From the royal balcony above, Princess Liriana of the Valari Empire stood perfectly still. She had been observing the diplomatic exhibition only moments before. The demonstration had been meant to impress visiting delegates with the Empire's advanced security systems. Instead, it had become a disaster. Liriana gripped the balcony railing, her sharp violet eyes studying the creature carefully. It wasn't attacking yet. It was searching. That was worse. Seal the lower gates. One commander barked through the arena's loudspeakers. Containment teams inbound. But Liriana knew the truth. Containment teams would never reach the arena in time. The Ravager lowered its head slightly, and then it began to move. The creature's steps were slow and deliberate, like a storm choosing where to strike first. Across the arena floor, a single figure stood alone. A human. He had been standing among the diplomatic envoys near the center of the arena when the creature fell. Most delegates had already fled to the exits, but this one hadn't moved. Princess Liriana narrowed her eyes. The human's name was Adrian Cole, a diplomatic observer from Earth. Humans were still a relatively new species in galactic politics. Many civilizations considered them unpredictable. Others dismissed them as primitive. Liriana had not yet decided which opinion was correct, but what the human did next made the entire arena fall silent again. Instead of running, Adrian Cole stepped forward. A murmur of disbelief spread through the crowd. "Is he insane?" one ambassador whispered. The Ravager immediately noticed him. Its massive head turned slowly toward the human. The predator's pupils narrowed. It had found something interesting. The creature's muscles shifted beneath its armored hide as it began circling, studying the lone figure standing calmly in the center of the arena. Adrian didn't draw a weapon. He didn't shout. He didn't even look nervous. He simply watched the creature. Princess Liriana felt a chill run down her spine. She had studied countless military briefings on Ravagers. Entire squads of trained soldiers often struggled to survive a single encounter with one. Yet the human stood there as if he were observing a strange animal at a zoo. The Ravager took another step closer, then another. Each step echoed like distant thunder across the arena floor. Adrian slowly shifted his position, not backward, sideways. The movement was small, subtle, but the creature reacted instantly. It adjusted its path. The Ravager moved slightly to the left. Liriana blinked. That was odd. Adrian took another small step. Again, the creature adjusted its direction. The princess leaned forward. Around her, the panic shouting of security officers faded into background noise as something else caught her attention. The human wasn't standing randomly. He was positioning himself. Another step, another adjustment from the creature. The Ravager lowered its head and began moving in a slow circle. But the human shifted again, carefully, quietly. Liriana felt a sudden tightening in her chest. She recognized that movement, not from war manuals, from something older, something instinctive. The Ravager stopped. For a moment, Predator and human stood perfectly still across the arena floor. Then the creature began circling again. But now the path of its movement was different. Subtle, almost unnoticeable, except to Liriana. The princess suddenly understood what she was seeing. Her heart skipped. The human wasn't reacting to the Ravager. He was guiding it. Every small step Adrian took forced the Predator to reposition itself. Gradually, carefully, like invisible threads pulling across the arena. Liriana felt a cold realization creep into her thoughts. The Ravager thought it was stalking prey, but that wasn't what was happening. Not at all. Down on the arena floor, Adrian Cole shifted his stance again, watching the creature's eyes carefully. The Ravager took another slow step toward him, but something about its movement had changed. It wasn't fully in control anymore, and the human knew it. High above the arena, Princess Liriana suddenly stood up from her seat. Her voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "Wait!" The security officers paused, but the human below didn't look up. Liriana's eyes widened as the truth finally settled in her mind. The human wasn't preparing to fight. He wasn't defending himself. And he certainly wasn't panicking. He was doing something far more dangerous. Princess Liriana gripped the balcony rail tightly, because the moment she understood what the human was doing, she felt genuine fear. The Ravager thought it had found prey. But Adrian Cole had already made his decision. He wasn't fighting the monster. He was hunting it. The arena had gone unnaturally quiet. Moments earlier, alarms had been blaring and diplomats had been shouting over one another. Now, thousands of beings across dozens of species stood frozen, watching the scene unfolding on the arena floor. At the center of it all stood Adrian Cole, and circling him slowly was a Ravager. The massive Predator moved with deliberate caution, its armored body shifting like a living tank. Every step it took was careful, calculated. The creature's glowing eyes never left the human. Predators understood one thing above all else: confidence. Most prey ran. Most soldiers panicked. But the human did neither. Adrian simply watched the creature. Princess Liriana leaned forward over the balcony rail, her sharp eyes tracking every subtle movement happening below. Something about the human's posture unsettled her. He wasn't tense. He wasn't defensive. He looked patient, as if he had all the time in the galaxy. The Ravager began circling again. Its tail dragged slowly across the arena floor as it repositioned itself. The creature's advanced sensory organs were likely scanning Adrian's heartbeat, breathing patterns, and muscle tension. Normally, those signals would give a predator everything it needed to predict its prey's next move. But something was confusing the creature. Adrian shifted one step to the right. The movement was almost too small to notice, yet the Ravager instantly altered its path. Princess Liriana frowned. That wasn't coincidence. The creature moved again, trying to angle itself behind the human. Adrian stepped sideways once more. The Ravager adjusted. Another step, another adjustment. From a distance, it looked like random movement. But to Liriana's trained eyes, a pattern was forming. Across the arena floor, the human slowly walked backward 3 steps. The Ravager advanced. But when the creature lunged slightly forward, Adrian pivoted left. The Predator missed its angle. It stopped, confused. A murmur spread through the military observers sitting behind the royal balcony. "Is the human retreating?" one strategist asked quietly. Another officer shook his head. "No." Liriana whispered softly to herself. "He's steering it." The Ravager took another slow step forward. Adrian remained calm. He lowered his center of gravity slightly. His hands hung loosely at his sides. The creature watched closely. Predators recognized fear through body language. But Adrian wasn't afraid. That confused the Ravager even more. The creature began circling wider now, trying to study the human from different angles. Its claws scraped faintly across the stone floor as it moved. Adrian stepped again. Another small adjustment. The Ravager changed direction. Princess Liriana suddenly felt a strange chill. She turned toward the tactical analyst behind her. "Run a movement projection," she ordered. Within seconds, a holographic overlay appeared above the balcony. The system traced the path of the Ravager across the arena. Then it plotted Adrian's movements beside it. The results made several officers sit up straight. The Ravager's movements looked random, but Adrian's movements did not. Every step the human had taken had forced the predator into a specific position. Gradually, slowly, the Ravager had been pushed toward the center of the arena. Liriana's pulse quickened. "That's impossible," one analyst whispered. "No one manipulates a Ravager's movement pattern." Yet the data floating above the balcony proved it. The human was doing exactly that. Below, the Ravager suddenly stopped circling. Its muscles tensed. The predator had reached a decision. Attack. Without warning, the massive creature lunged forward. Gasps erupted across the arena. The Ravager moved like lightning. Its armored body surged forward, claws striking the stone floor as it launched itself toward the human. But Adrian was already moving. He stepped to the side. Not quickly, not desperately. Simply, precisely. The Ravager's claws slammed into the ground where he had been standing. Stone cracked under the impact. The creature skidded across the arena floor before stopping. A ripple of shock moved through the watching crowd. Adrian hadn't barely avoided the attack. He had avoided it perfectly, as if he had known exactly when it would happen. The Ravager turned quickly, irritated now. Its glowing eyes burned brighter. This time the creature began moving faster. It circled again, trying to reestablish control. But something had changed. The predator's movements were sharper now, less confident. Adrian watched quietly. Then he took another step. The Ravager adjusted. Another step, another adjustment. Princess Liriana suddenly realized something disturbing. The Ravager wasn't just circling anymore. It was hesitating. For the first time since entering the arena, the creature looked uncertain. Predators were used to controlling the hunt, but the Ravager no longer controlled the pace of the encounter. Adrian did. The human shifted position again, slowly forcing the creature toward the arena's northern wall. The Ravager didn't even seem to notice. Its instincts told it to keep watching the prey, keep circling, keep waiting for the perfect moment. But every time it moved, it ended up exactly where the human wanted it. Liriana felt her breath catch. She finally understood what the human was doing. Adrian Cole wasn't reacting to the predator. He wasn't improvising. He was guiding it. Every step, every pause, every shift of his weight. The Ravager believed it was hunting, but in reality, it was being herded. Below, the creature suddenly stopped again. Its glowing eyes locked onto Adrian. This time its posture had changed. The predator's muscles were tense. Its tail twitched, not with confidence, with irritation. Something deep inside the Ravager's instincts was warning it that something was wrong, but it couldn't understand what. Adrian took one final slow step. The Ravager followed. Then it froze. For a brief moment, predator and human stared at each other across the arena, and for the first time in its life, the engineered war beast experienced something unfamiliar, uncertainty. High above the arena, Princess Liriana whispered the realization that had just formed in her mind. The Ravager thinks it's hunting. She tightened her grip on the balcony rail. But the human, her voice dropped to a quiet breath, is leading the hunt. The arena lights reflected off the Ravager's armored scales as the creature slowly circled the human again. But now something had changed. The movement of the predator was no longer smooth. It hesitated. Tiny pauses appeared in its steps. Moments of uncertainty. Across the arena floor, Adrian Cole stood perfectly calm. His breathing remained steady. His eyes followed the creature's movements carefully. Above him, in the royal balcony, Princess Liriana felt a knot tighten in her chest. The tactical projection still floated in the air around the command officers behind her. Every movement from the arena was being tracked. The pattern was undeniable now. The Ravager's path looked chaotic, but Adrian's movements created a subtle spiral that kept tightening around the creature, like invisible walls slowly closing. Liriana's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Stop." Several commanders turned toward her, but the human below did not react. The Ravager suddenly accelerated. Its muscles rippled beneath its armored hide as it attempted another charge. The creature lunged forward with terrifying speed. Gasps erupted from the crowd. But once again, Adrian moved exactly when he needed to. He shifted one step backward, then slightly to the side. The Ravager's claws struck the stone floor again, missing him by less than a meter. Fragments of rock scattered across the arena, but Adrian had already repositioned himself. Not far away, just enough. The predator spun around again, frustration growing. Its tail lashed across the floor. The creature's glowing eyes fixed onto the human, with greater intensity now. The Ravager wasn't confused anymore. It was irritated. Predators did not like being denied their attack. The creature began circling again, faster this time. Adrian adjusted his stance. One step, another step. Princess Liriana suddenly straightened. Something about the human's movement triggered an ancient memory, not from military training, from history, from cultures that had existed long before advanced technology. Ancient hunter societies. Liriana's eyes widened. "Stop him," she whispered. One of the commanders looked confused. "Your Highness." Her voice rose sharply. "Stop him." The command echoed across the arena. Security officers froze. But Adrian never looked up. He continued watching the Ravager. Below, the predator slowed again. Something in its instincts was beginning to scream. Predators understood fear. They understood prey. But the human in front of it did not behave like prey. And he did not behave like a competing predator either. He behaved like something else entirely. Something older. Something patient. The Ravager attempted another approach. This time it moved cautiously, stepping closer without committing to a full attack. Adrian adjusted again. 2 steps backward. 1 step sideways. The creature followed the movement, without realizing it. Above the arena, Liriana felt dread spreading through her thoughts. The Ravager believed it was controlling the distance, but it wasn't. The human was controlling everything, every position, every angle, every opportunity. The creature suddenly lunged again, this time faster than before. But Adrian pivoted smoothly, allowing the Ravager's momentum to carry it past him. The beast slid across the stone floor before regaining its balance. The crowd gasped again. Alien military observers leaned forward in disbelief. Several of them had spent decades studying Ravagers. They were among the galaxy's most efficient war predators. Entire combat simulations had been built around their hunting patterns. Yet this human was dismantling those patterns effortlessly. One analyst whispered quietly, "He's predicting it." Another shook his head. "No, he's shaping it." Down below, the Ravager began pacing more aggressively now. The creature's movements were less controlled, more desperate. It tried circling faster, tried shifting direction suddenly. But every time it moved, Adrian adjusted his position, just enough, just soon enough, to force the predator back into the same invisible path. Princess Liriana gripped the balcony rail tightly. Her heart was pounding now. She could see the outcome forming long before anyone else. The Ravager was not hunting anymore. It was reacting. And once a predator begins reacting instead of controlling the hunt, it is already lost. "Stop him." Liriana shouted again. Security officers rushed toward the arena gates, but they hesitated. Intervening now could trigger the Ravager's aggression toward the crowd. The human below still did not react to the chaos above. His attention never left the creature. Adrian stepped again, this time forward. The Ravager recoiled slightly. For the first time since entering the arena, the predator had taken a step backward. A wave of shocked murmurs spread through the audience. Ravagers did not retreat. They dominated. They destroyed. But now the creature was doing something different. Something it had never been designed to do. It was trying to survive. Liriana's voice dropped into a terrified whisper. "It's too late." The commanders looked toward her. "What do you mean, Your Highness?" Her eyes remained locked on the arena below. The hunt has already started. Down on the arena floor, Adrian Cole watched the creature carefully. The Ravager shifted again, trying to find a new angle, trying to escape the strange pressure it could not understand. But every path it chose brought it closer to the same destination. Adrian took another slow step. The predator followed, without realizing why. High above the arena, Princess Liriana closed her eyes briefly, because she finally understood something terrifying about humans. They did not simply fight monsters. They studied them, They adapted to them. And when the moment was right, they hunted them. When Liriana opened her eyes again, she looked down at the arena with quiet dread, because Adrian Cole was not reacting to the Ravager. He was guiding it somewhere. And whatever happened next, the creature would not see it coming. By the time the Ravager realized something was wrong, it was already too late. The creature stood near the northern edge of the arena, its massive chest rising and falling faster than before. Its glowing eyes moved constantly, searching for an opening that never seemed to appear. Across from it, Adrian Cole remained calm, unmoving, watching. Above the arena, hundreds of observers leaned forward in tense silence. Even the emergency sirens had been silenced now. No one wanted to interrupt what was unfolding, because something extraordinary was happening. The Ravager had stopped hunting. Now it was trying to understand. The predator shifted its weight and attempted to circle again, but its movements had lost their earlier confidence. Each step was cautious, measured. The creature's instincts were warning it that something was very wrong, but it could not identify what. Adrian slowly walked 2 steps to the left. The Ravager responded instantly. It turned to face him, and once again, it unknowingly moved exactly where the human needed it to go. High above the arena, Princess Liriana stared at the tactical projection hovering in front of her. The pattern was now impossible to ignore. The Ravager's path had been gradually redirected across the arena. Every step Adrian had taken over the last several minutes formed a careful sequence. A corridor, a funnel. Liriana's breath caught. "He's guiding it," she whispered. One of the Imperial strategists nodded slowly. "Yes," toward the northern containment gate. Liriana's eyes widened. At the far side of the arena, a reinforced security chamber had been partially opened earlier by emergency crews attempting to restore containment systems. It was designed to trap dangerous creatures once they were inside. But no one had expected the Ravager to willingly move toward it. Yet, that was exactly what was happening. Down on the arena floor, the creature shifted again. Its tail whipped across the stone floor in irritation. The Ravager suddenly lunged forward again, trying to break the strange tension building around it. This time its charge was more desperate than precise. Adrian stepped aside again. The predator rushed past him. Its claws scraped across the stone as it tried to correct its direction. But the creature's momentum carried it further down the arena floor, closer to the northern wall, closer to the containment gate. The Ravager stopped abruptly. For the first time, it looked behind itself. Something in its instincts finally sensed the trap forming. But Adrian was already moving. The human took 3 slow steps forward, closing the distance. The Ravager's head snapped back toward him instantly. Predators hated losing sight of their opponent. It pivoted again, facing him, exactly as Adrian had expected. Above the arena, Liriana whispered in disbelief. "He's controlling its focus." The Ravager could have turned and run toward the opposite side of the arena, but its instincts refused to allow that. The human was still in front of it, still watching, still challenging. The creature growled softly, a deep rumble vibrating through the arena floor. It prepared for another attack. But Adrian moved again. Just 1 step. The Ravager followed. Another step. Another adjustment. And without realizing it, the creature crossed the final invisible boundary Adrian had been guiding it toward. The reinforced containment chamber was now directly behind it. Adrian suddenly stopped moving. The Ravager hesitated. Something about the human's stillness made the predator uneasy. For several seconds, neither of them moved. The arena remained completely silent. Then the Ravager attacked again. A final desperate charge. The creature surged forward with all the speed its powerful muscles could generate. But Adrian had already predicted it. He pivoted smoothly to the side. The Ravager rushed past him once more, this time directly into the open containment chamber. The moment the creature crossed the threshold, the trap activated. Energy barriers flared to life. Massive reinforced doors slammed shut behind the beast with thunderous impact. The Ravager spun around violently, slamming its armored body against the containment field. The barrier held. Inside the chamber, the predator roared in frustration, but it was trapped. The hunt was over. For several seconds, the entire arena remained silent. Thousands of spectators stared at the containment chamber in disbelief. Then slowly, their attention turned back toward the center of the arena, toward the human. Adrian Cole stood exactly where he had been moments before, calm, unharmed, as if the entire encounter had been nothing more than a routine exercise. Above him, Princess Liriana leaned against a balcony rail. Her mind struggled to process what she had just witnessed. The Ravager had not been defeated through force. It had not been injured. It had not even been directly attacked. Instead, the human had simply guided it, manipulated its instincts, predicted its every reaction, until the predator had trapped itself. Liriana turned toward the tactical analyst behind her. "Run the movement data again," she said quietly. The projection replayed the entire encounter. Adrian's steps appeared as a series of small points across the arena floor, each one positioned perfectly, each one shaping the creature's movement. The result was undeniable. For the last several minutes, the Ravager had been moving exactly where the human wanted it to go. Liriana exhaled slowly. The galaxy had always classified humans as unpredictable, dangerous, primitive, but what she had just witnessed was something entirely different. Not chaos, not aggression, strategy, precision, patience. She looked down at the arena floor again. Adrian was already walking calmly toward the exit gate. The princess whispered softly to herself. He didn't fight the predator. Her eyes narrowed slightly as the realization settled. He hunted it. The arena had finally grown quiet again. The emergency crews had secured the containment chamber, and the Ravager was now being transported back to a reinforced military facility. The creature still slammed occasionally against the energy barriers, but its struggle no longer threatened anyone. What had shocked the galaxy was not the creature. It was a human, across the Empire's communication networks. Footage of the encounter was already spreading rapidly. Military analysts, scientists, and strategists were replaying the moment again and again. Each time they watched it, the same conclusion appeared. The Ravager had never been in control. The human had been. Hours later, the arena had been cleared of spectators, and the diplomatic summit resumed inside the Imperial Palace. Inside one of the palace's private observation chambers, Princess Liriana stood quietly beside a large transparent window overlooking the city lights of the capital world. Behind her, the door opened softly. She did not turn immediately. "I was wondering when you would arrive," she said calmly. Footsteps approached. Adrian Cole stepped into the room. He had changed back into his diplomatic uniform, looking as composed as ever. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was not hostile. It was thoughtful. Liriana finally turned to face him. Her sharp violet eyes studied the human carefully. "You could have killed it," she said. Adrian shrugged slightly. That would have been the easy option. Liriana crossed her arms. Most species in the galaxy consider Ravagers nearly impossible to survive without weapons. Adrian gave a faint smile. They're impressive creatures. The princess watched him for a moment. Then she asked a question that had been spreading through the Imperial command structure since the arena incident. "Why didn't you kill it?" Adrian walked toward the window and looked out over the city lights. For the same reason hunters don't destroy an entire forest just to catch one animal. Liriana frowned slightly. "I don't understand." Adrian turned back toward her. "Predators follow instincts. If you understand those instincts, you don't need to overpower them." Liriana considered that. "So you manipulated it." Adrian shook his head gently. "Not manipulated." He paused briefly. "Guided." The princess raised an eyebrow. "You guided a war predator designed to hunt soldiers." Adrian nodded. "Yes." Liriana studied him carefully. "Humans do this often?" Adrian leaned casually against the window frame. "Humans evolved on a world full of predators. Larger ones, faster ones." He gestured slightly. "Our ancestors survived by learning how those predators thought." Liriana's curiosity grew. "You mean hunting techniques?" "Partly." Adrian's expression remained calm. "But hunting isn't always about attacking. Sometimes it's about positioning." He walked slowly across the room as he spoke. Ancient human hunters used terrain, movement, and patience to guide animals exactly where they wanted them. Liriana's eyes widened slightly. "Toward traps?" Adrian nodded. "Toward outcomes?" The princess turned toward the city lights again, thinking deeply. So you predicted everything the Ravager would do. Adrian gave a small shrug. Not everything. He paused. But enough. Liriana looked back at him. Her voice lowered slightly. If humans can do that with a genetically engineered war predator. She hesitated. What could you do in actual war? Adrian didn't answer immediately. For several seconds, he simply watched the city skyline. Then he finally spoke. Hopefully we never have to find out. Liriana studied his face carefully. There was no arrogance in his expression, no pride, just calm certainty, which somehow made the realization even more unsettling. Later that night, inside the Imperial Military Archives, senior strategists completed their official report on the arena incident. The analysis included hundreds of sensor recordings and movement simulations. Every piece of data led to the same conclusion. The Ravager had not been defeated. It had been outmaneuvered. A final note was added to the archive entry. It was written by one of the Empire's oldest tactical advisors. A simple observation, but one that would eventually spread across countless civilizations. The note read, "Human combat doctrine is often misunderstood. They do not rely on brute strength. They rely on understanding." The advisor paused before adding the final sentence. And once humans understand their opponent, the hunt has already begun. Far away from the palace, Adrian Cole walked quietly through the night streets of the capital city. The galaxy would spend years studying what had happened inside the arena. But to Adrian, it had simply been a familiar lesson. Because on Earth, humans had learned something long ago. When survival depends on intelligence, patience, and strategy, you don't need to be the strongest predator. You just need to know how to hunt.